All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen in just a second with the presentation. I often run into barriers with this, just full transparency. So if you do not see my screen, please let me know. Excellent. So the presentation should be showing on the screen in front of you. And of course, I'm hoping that you guys can all hear me. Oh, thank you, Dorian. Oh, that was so sweet of you. All right, so it is 6 o'clock. Again, thank you for tuning in. Just a heads up, this is being recorded. I will upload this to YouTube after the presentation, and it will be sent out as a YouTube link with the PowerPoint slides in an email, as well with the email that you signed up with. Within 24 hours of tonight's presentation. So if you want to hear something back, or maybe something happens later on tonight that you want to be able to tune back in, that's not a problem. So tonight, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Amanda. I am a registered dietitian and a personal trainer at Elevation Fitness and Functional Nutrition RX. Tonight's presentation is going to be about understanding hunger, satiety, cravings, and mindful eating. It almost serves as a third part to our recent GLP-1 seminars, as I felt the conversation around food noise is so broad and a big reason why many people look to utilize those medications. And of course, they can be wonderful tools for individuals, but I think it's important to be aware of other tools too that can also help out in managing our hunger and our cravings. So without further ado, let's begin. An overview of how we're going to break down today's presentation. We're going to first define hunger and talk more about our physiological needs. And then we'll move more into psychological. Of course, I am not a mental health provider, more so about the food interaction with psyche, as dietitians do cover that up until it relates to food. Of course, we'll go into environmental triggers, meal prep for a little bit, and of course, support and resources. At any point throughout today's presentation, please give me a shout if you have any questions. I'm going to check back and forth with the chat, but sometimes as I'm presenting, I can miss the chat a little bit. So please don't feel funny just stopping me with a question. There will also be a Q&A at the very end as well. So first and foremost, what is hunger, right? Hunger's official definition is the desire, or really more so the need for food, right? It's our body's actual need for calories, protein, carbs, fat, etc., our micronutrients. Some cues about hunger. I know this might sound simplistic, but sorting it out between hunger and cravings is one of the first steps. So, hunger cues could be that I'm feeling thirsty or shaky, like my blood sugar is getting a little low, or I'm feeling a little lightheaded across the top of my head. My stomach, of course, is contracting, it's growling, potential headaches for some, fatigue. It comes on slowly as the food gradually exits the stomach. And then, of course, it does not pass with distraction. What is a craving? A craving is a strong desire or urge for a specific food or type of food that can often be emotional, psychological. It can have some physical signals, but often it's not physiologically driven, more so environmental, psychological, emotional. However, feeling tired is not an emotion, for example, or but however, sometimes we can get cravings for certain things and crisscross signals for other things. And we'll get more into that. Why can cravings happen? There's that biological drop in blood sugar levels, hormone shifts, nutrient deficiencies. So cravings help to tell us that we are hungry at times. Emotional stress is more common, boredom, comfort seeking, right? How many of us, something happens that's stressful. All right, let me grab that chocolate, right? Or, we were raised as children, you're not feeling good, let me make you something, really comforting to eat. Or, hey, you did something awesome. Let's go out for ice cream and use food as a reward. So it can be really intertwined with our society and ways that we relate to different emotions, as food is a part of most things, holidays, celebrations, losses of loved ones, etc. Environmental, so food cues can be the smells, right? I remember during the pandemic, my mom was baking a lot, so there was always out in sight and in mind on the counter. So of course, visual cues. Of course, marketing is very good on TV, like those Arby's sandwiches, right? Social settings, right? I'm not even hungry, but this food is just in front of me. Habitual could be learned behaviors like we just touched on, and routines around food. The key point, though, is cravings are messages from your body and brain, and understanding why you might be getting the craving or sorting out, am I actually hungry or is this really a craving, can help you to find how you want to respond or react to that signal best for your body's needs. So it's really fun because it's a way that you can best learn your body and the way that your body is communicating to you. So we're going to go over some basic physiological needs and mechanisms. So of course, on the left is blood sugar from about, it says 70 on the low end. So you can see on the top of the y-axis, 130. And then of course, minutes on the x-axis. So of course, when we eat different foods, especially when we eat carbohydrates, our body breaks down those foods into more simpler carbohydrates, and after that food is broken down in part, especially carbs can be broken down by salivary amylase in our mouth, and then is broken down mechanically as well as chemically in the stomach. Once it passes from the stomach, it goes into the small intestine where absorption starts to occur. Food can sometimes, not sometimes, food typically takes 3 to 4 hours in the stomach, but glucose can be absorbed rather quickly depending on the type of carbs and what it's paired with. So we'll talk more about that. But typically, carbs are broken down into glucose. That glucose is released into the bloodstream, causes those blood sugars to rise. If it's a little high for what's high for us, our body releases insulin to help lower glucose back down to normal levels. The other end of that is if we're going too long without eating and our glucose is very low, the hormone glucagon is released to raise those sugars back up into what would be considered homeostasis, typically between 70 and less than 140. Homeostasis is just the balance within our body. So you have what's called glycemic index, right? So you have the same kind of graph, just labeled a little differently on the top left-hand corner of blood sugar levels plotted against time. And you'll see in the red, and I don't like using red that like bad, it's just the image that I found. So red indicating high glycemic foods, yellow indicating lower glycemic foods. So of course, lower glycemic foods are going to be better for our health and well-being because it's going to help keep our body within homeostasis, like we talked about, ideal blood sugar ranges. So when you consume a food, say a carbohydrate, and you see the bottom diagram on the right-hand side of like the fruits, like the apple, the string beans, and the beans, right? Those are all carbs. Everything from the apple to the other end of the spectrum to like the soda and like the Pop-Tarts and everything in between, those are all carbohydrates. And I remember being a freshman in college way long time ago and being like, fruit's a carb. So yes, like fruits, vegetables are carbs, beans are carbs, but of course, soda, white bread, white pasta, etc. So I think things in terms of the general media and marketing around carbohydrates have gotten a little better, that no, carbs are not bad for us, right? No food is quote unquote bad for us. All foods fit. It's a matter of the frequency to which those foods are coming into our diet and how our body responds to certain foods and how we pair them. So, of course, on the left-hand side, you're going to see lower glycemic foods. So, what does that mean? If a food is lower glycemic, it typically is higher in fiber or protein or fat or a combination. So, if I consume, say, I'm going to use the diagram on the left again. Say I consume apple juice. Apple juice has no fiber, no protein, no fat. We could always pair it with something, but on its own, it's a very high glycemic food. and it's going to take my blood sugars and spike me high for what's high for me and crash me down pretty quickly. It's not going to carry me over well from, say, like breakfast to lunch, and I'm going to be looking for that snack probably within an hour after having it. But if I have the apple, I'm gonna, spike not as high, more like the yellow line on the top left diagram, because there's fiber. And fiber is almost like a physical barrier in that it's gonna take your body more time to break that down, right? We have to chew it longer. It's got to sit in our stomach longer. It's going to take up more space in our stomach. So that sugar is going to more so pitter patter from our stomach into our small intestine and get absorbed into the bloodstream. So it's not going to just dump into the bloodstream like, say, apple juice. So it's going to slow down that absorption. And you know what? It's going to carry me over a little bit longer, especially if I could pair that apple with, say, some Greek yogurt and some peanut butter. So now we got protein, we got healthy fat. And those molecules, if you look at it from a chemical standpoint, are bigger physiological molecules, meaning there's more double bonds. And not to get too chemistry on us, I swear, those bonds have to get broken down though by the acids in our stomach to make them into smaller molecules. So proteins have to go from proteins to peptides to amino acids, right? Fats have to get broken down to fatty acids. Carbohydrates are going to get broken down into simple sugars so that your body can take those smallest units of those foods and use it to make us, right? To make our hormones, to make our enzymes, to make our skin, hair, nails, everything that is us. So when you see that spectrum, it doesn't mean left side is good, right side is bad. It just means if you're going to have something on the right side, just know the physiological impact that that is more likely to have on your body. And that's more likely to spike you higher for what's higher for you. So, yes, it's going to be better to eat foods on the left-hand side of the spectrum more often because they're going to make you feel fuller longer. It's going to take longer for that food to move through your gastrointestinal tract, and especially if you pair it with protein and or healthy fat. But maybe you have a social splurge 1 to 3 times a week, depending on the size of it. Nothing to feel guilty about, but just noting what does that do to my body? And if I have a morning where, say someone has a croissant for breakfast, right? There's just like some layers of butter in there and carbs. I'm going to be hungry in 2 hours. And so at least I know if my stomach's growling a little earlier, oh, I had really like no protein, I had really like no fiber. I really needed to boost that up with something else, and make that really more of like a once in a while treat. So it's just being aware. There's no guilt, no shame, just awareness. So this is a better example of the protein aspect and the fat aspect I was touching upon. So we have the apple juice compared to the apple, right? So if I only have an apple for breakfast, it's only going to carry me over so long, and I'm going to be eating my left hand before lunch because I'm a hungry girl. So what I mean by that is you want to pair it with protein under healthy fat to carry you over a little bit longer. So you're not so hungry, for example, maybe like going into lunch, right? Like I'm not picking at the stuff in the break room or at my desk or something before I go down to have lunch, and I'm actually feeling more controlled, and then I'm less likely to eat really quickly because I'm not so hungry. So it does all add up sometimes, depending on how you respond. So I know it might come off a little cliche, but that USDA My Plate diagram, or this is Canada's version. Canada uses real foods in the image, so I find that to be really helpful sometimes. This is part where that kind of cliche, but good, USDA My Plate comes from, right? And we love Canada, but they accidentally put sweet potatoes and peas in the non-starchy vegetable side here. So just as we go over that, we're going to start with starches. So in this 1/4 of our plate, we see like our whole grains, our beans, our whole grain rice or barley, farro, buckwheat, beans, but also starchy vegetables go in that category. So that's like peas, corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and most squash, except for zucchini or summer squash. Hi, Oliver. That's my cat. Sorry, guys. Zucchini or summer squash or spaghetti squash. Those three guys, they're non-starchy. And what I mean by non-starchy vegetables, please, as long as your stomach will allow the fiber and they agree with you, eat as much as you want. They're packed in vitamins and minerals. They're very nutrient dense, but not energy dense. So they help you to feel physiologically full. They give you a lot of fiber and they help your body to mitigate the blood sugar spike when you do have the starches. So everybody's in a team together, right? It's not one MVP, they're all a team. So like protein's always made the star, and protein is so, so important. So I do not want to underplay anything, but carbs are so important, fat's so important too. So they're all a team. And what I mean by that is protein is typically about one-fourth of your plate, depending on your needs. So, of course, working with a registered dietitian one-on-one can help you to figure out what your needs are. But having protein on your plate, if I don't have my protein on my plate, I am way more likely to add that extra bean, those extra beans, or that extra whole grain pasta or chickpea pasta and overportion. And the same goes for vegetables. If I don't have vegetables on my plate, I'm going to have a bigger portion of the protein. I'm going to have a bigger portion of the starch, probably. And then I'm more likely to go over in my needs potentially as those vegetables are lower in calories, they take up space in my stomach, they give me fiber, they're going to slow down the movement of that food through my digestive tract. Also, you want to think of foods that you have to chew and bite, and it takes time to slow you down while you're eating. So, if I'm eating a bunch of broccoli, I have to really take my time chewing that and eating slowly versus my guilty pleasure of say like mac and cheese, right? So if I'm just eating mac and cheese, I can eat that really quickly and it doesn't take much to chew that down, right? So it also helps you to pace yourself too, which we'll go into pacing and other environmental aspects of this. You could see on the right a fun little diagram of protein and or healthy fat in one column, and then on the other column, carbohydrates, as just a quick example of pairing snacks to meet this ideal. And of course, we have that USDA My Plate or Canada's version of My Plate. Beans always get the question mark. So if you are more of a vegetarian, beans, especially paired with rice, is a complete protein, and you would make that your protein. However, if you are not a vegan or a vegetarian, please place those beans in the starchy section of your plate. They will also have protein in it for sure. Same with whole wheat pasta, same with chickpea pasta, same with your whole grain bread. Um, there'll be some protein in that, but you'll still have, say, the chicken or the turkey on your plate, and that will also help you to boost that protein even higher because you have the beans and the chicken, say, versus not having the beans. Also, beans are loaded in fiber. Something that can also be a great tool is the hunger fullness scale. Even as a dietitian, I will keep this on my fridge as like a reminder to myself. So if I am gonna go more than 3, 4 hours without eating, which I never want to do, and I want to try to avoid for my own personal needs, um, I'm gonna be probably at a one, right? I'm gonna walk in the door. Oh my God, I didn't eat lunch today. I am so, so hungry. I am at a one. So when most people are at, say, a one, very hungry, I call it seeing red. I'm so hungry. Give me the fastest thing possible. I might just want to pick something up, or that's when we're like grazing when we're cooking, or trying to just make something quick out of a package. So this is where having a meal prep could be helpful, right? So just because we get to a one, we made that mistake of accidentally getting to a one doesn't mean that we lost the game, right? It could have just been like a little stumbling block, but we made it back. However, when most of the time when we're at a one, we're so hungry that, it takes a little bit of time. We might be eating a little faster. We might be more likely to end at a 10. It's good to call yourself out and say, where do I think I fall on the spectrum? 3 is where you're starting to first feel that onset of hunger, that I could really eat something. Stomach might be starting to growl. Some of you might be saying, I don't get stomach growls. I don't feel that. We'll talk about that later in the presentation. But there's some kind of inclination that I need to eat. I'm hungry. 7 is where we want to stop eating at, right? So we want to really try to start eating at a 3. And when we start eating at 3, we're a little more likely to stop at about a 7, which I call satiety. I'm starting to slightly feel uncomfortable. I'm definitely, full, but I'm not 10 Thanksgiving stuffed. A friend calls it unbuckle your pants stuffed. Like your belt is so tight stuffed. Um, so it's a good visual. You can use this at points to, before you eat, or sometimes if you're a quicker eater, it's good to maybe pause in the middle of the meal. I used to almost like sarcastically say this with my fiance of, hold on, I'm pausing to feel my fullness. And I said it as a joke, but I'm actually being completely serious. And then we'd be like, wait, actually, where am I on this spectrum? And you just take a minute because it does take your vagal nerve time to communicate from your gut to your brain. It's like the LIE at rush hour. So if I'm eating really, really quickly, that's when I'm going to get smacked with that I'm full feeling because it does take time for that vagal nerve to travel up to the brain to say I'm full. If I'm eating slower, that message is going to be, transported to the brain. However, I will not have bypassed that likely, thank God. Thank goodness, because no one likes feeling uncomfortable like that. So, with this tool, knowing how your body's where your hunger is versus a craving, this can be helpful at helping to determine the difference there. So, what impacts our physiological needs? So, we did go into more like our macronutrients just now and the quality of our foods a bit. One thing I didn't touch on is how processed a food is. So, if it's, say, Oreos, I could house probably a whole sleeve of Oreos and not feel full. And I know I'm not alone in saying that. They're designed that way, right? Certain foods are designed to be hyper palatable and what would be like rare in nature. So I'm using an Oreo because the colors, the flavors, the textures, right? The crunch with the softness, it's not common in nature. And your body tends to really want to go for high sugar, high fat foods, especially if we were out in the wild. That would be something that could keep us going for a long period of time. There's not a lot of fiber in it, not a lot of protein, and not a lot of healthy fats to really bind us and feel full. So, of course, how processed a food is can really impact that. But typically in processing, what happens? Fiber is broken down, right? So that's one of your first things to check is what's the fiber like? If you see it's over 10% of the daily values, that's considered a good source of fiber. In general, for women, we want to try to be over about 30 grams of fiber per day. For men, over about 35 grams of fiber per day. However, if your stomach can tolerate it, go for more. It's linked more with longevity. If you're eating higher fiber foods, you're likely getting in more micronutrients like vitamin C, for example. So, meal timing plays into this. So, I know there's intermittent fasting, that is a fad, that is true. For most of us, though, we do want to try to eat within 1 to 2 hours upon waking. And from that point, eating every 3 to 4 hours, breakfast, lunch, dinner, maybe 1 to 2 snacks as needed. Snacks are tools, nothing to feel guilty about, but they're not always a must do. And of course, we want to try to think of intermittent fasting as reverse intermittent fasting, cutting off eating maybe 2 to 4 hours before bed, allow that resting heart rate to drop before bed. Not food isn't really getting broken down, our digestive tract isn't really working while we're sleeping, and then we're hungry by the time we wake up. So if you're eating about every 3 to 4 hours, that is a good tool so that you're not, finding yourself with that hunger fullness scale at a 1 and saying, I'm starving. I'm really, really hungry. I could eat a horse right now. Try to eat during your most active time during the 12 hours of the day. So if you work out in the morning, maybe breakfast should be one of your bigger meals. You could keep all the meals pretty even too, if that works for you. Or lunch, there's the expression eat like a king at breakfast, a queen at lunch, and a pauper at dinner, especially if you're not very active in the evening. But if you work out at 5 o'clock and you get done at 6 and you eat dinner at 7, yeah, that can work out. However, it's not really my favorite because I like it when you're able to walk and move a little bit after you eat. But again, we're all unique, we're all different. Maybe you work a night shift. So it really does depend on what you're doing. Hydration, of course, plays into this. So your hypothalamus tells you I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm tired. So sometimes I know that if I'm thirsty and I'm dehydrated, I know my, like, not just my body, but our bodies doesn't care if we get hydration from water or food. It just wants some kind of water. It needs to just fulfill that need. Whatever happens, it's just going into the body. Um, So if you are dehydrated, sometimes we can think that we're actually hungry for food, but really we just need water. It is like an old myth, like drink a water, glass of water before you eat, it'll fill you up. Um, that water-based food concept, volume food concept, we'll talk more about. That's kind of where you eat like the salad or the veggie minestrone before the meal because it's more bound with the fiber to help you feel full. But that drink a glass of water is more so if I'm having if I think I need a snack that, wait, I already had a snack, I had a balanced lunch. What's my body looking for? Let me drink some water. Maybe I'm dehydrated. That's where that can come into play. But it's not so much going to really like fill up your stomach so that it takes up space and then, you don't eat as much. That's really more of a myth. With hydration, urine color can be a really great indicator. You want to aim for pale straw to clear. We don't want to be urinating clear more than 3, 4, or 5 times, but most of us are not really worrying about hyponatremia. Some things that can make that urine color test a little biased is, say we drink some alcohol or we drink some, caffeine more than normal, we're going to be urinating a lot more. So it's not really, sometimes it's not a good indicator of our hydration status, but more so our body clearing things from the body. And of course, if you take a B complex of some kind. With sleep too, your hypothalamus also tells you, hey, I'm tired. So sometimes we're sleep deprived and we need to go to sleep and get energy versus eat this food and get energy. So sleep has been studied to impact your ghrelin hormone. Think ghrelin, like your little hunger gremlin in your body, or ghrelin growlin, right? That's how I remember it. So it helps with hunger control. It can increase that desire, causing you to eat more. Leptin, of course, gets suppressed when we are really sleep deprived. Leptin is your satiety hormone. Cortisol also can stimulate appetite. So when you're sleep deprived, your cortisol can get a little augmented. But also in general, when we're stressed out, think about when in extreme situations when someone has a panic attack, right? You're using a lot of glucose, right? You're burning a lot of glucose. So that can cause your blood sugars to tank and you feel really shaky. So that's an extreme version. But for cortisol to be released, epinephrine, adrenaline is released, and that causes your body to pull sugar into your bloodstream for fight or flight, right? So, sleep deprivation can cause an increase in your overall hunger or feelings of desire to eat, but in particular for sugar and saturated fat as well. Variety is important. So if I'm going to be the classic college gym bro and eat grilled chicken and broccoli and brown rice every single day, and not really honor my desire, not just eat to live or live to eat, but it's a combination of both, that I'm only going to burn out with that, right? So that's where sometimes we find ourselves like, I just ate this meal and it met my nutritional needs, but I'm not really satisfied with it. I didn't really enjoy it, right? So now I'm looking for something else because I wasn't really satisfied. Or maybe I didn't give myself time to, sit and pause and digest, or, other factors we'll get into. But the variety aspect is important. We want to like what we're eating. So emotional hunger, or I call it more so a craving. Um, Emotional hunger is sometimes a way to suppress or soothe a negative emotion, right? Food's always kind of been there for many of us sometimes, right? Like it's something that is representative of control in our life too. So emotions such as stress, I find to be a common trigger, anger, frustration, boredom, sadness, loneliness, or just trying to fill some kind of a need or serving as a little bit of a dopamine hit, right? I used to work with 9/11 responders for about 7 years of my career, who did have various mental health issues going on, like PTSD, depression, anxiety. And I would have so many amazing individuals say to me, Amanda, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't cheat on my wife, I don't do these things, but to cope, I eat. And, it can be a form of coping. And I think it's about sitting in those emotions, working with a mental health professional as needed too, to figure out, what am I looking for? What am I soothing, right? If you aren't able to put your thumb on it, right? It's about like sitting in the discomfort sometimes. So food can also serve as distraction. I know for myself, if I'm doing a lot of busy work, and I'm looking for that little dopamine high, oh, that chocolate's going to look a little extra appetizing, right? Or food can be celebratory in the regard of some individuals that I work with that might have be more prone for binge eating. I find Fridays to be a really common day that those triggers happen. It's I'm through the work week, I can treat myself. I'm going to get a big Italian meal and just, disassociate, right? And sometimes we don't even realize what we're doing. Like, oh, I just pulled over into McDonald's parking lot and had this amazing, two quarter pounders and a French fry, but I'm not realizing why I did that. And I'm so stuffed and I'm uncomfortable and I don't feel good. Why am I doing this to myself? I didn't even like that food. So I think it's just starting to be aware of certain habits for some individuals if it is going to that level. Um, or if you're noticing that there's other relationship conflicts, work stressors, fatigue, financial problems, health problems, that the food might be helping to cope and reroute to. Um, if that is going on, it's about seeing like, what is going on and how do I fix the real root of what it is and not mask it with something else. And we are all human. So, what impacts psychological needs? So, the emotional eating is using food to make oneself feel better or fill emotional needs rather than physiological. And I don't want to come off as food is just fuel. That's not true either. Well, and so it's finding that balance between it, and just being self-aware. When we're babies, we eat when we're hungry and we stop when we're full. So this is kind of we learn these behaviors. Our body is actually very good at regulating. It's these behaviors that we learn over time. And a lot of it can be the environment that we grow up in, our parents' food relationships, or just our friend groups and the way food is discussed. There's so many things that impact our relationship with food, and that's just scratching a tiny, tiny fraction of the surface. As we grow, though, that relationship with food changes. We begin to associate eating with maybe different emotions, different moods, different needs, or maybe we're trying to associate with food with different goals that we have for ourselves. If I just ate this way, my life might be better. That kind of a mindset, which we know is not true. Our attention changes over time and we disconnect with our body's physiological needs. So it's also about grounding ourselves, right? We're in a very go, go, go New York um, place for many of us. And sometimes it's stopping and saying, wait, what do I need? What do I need to do for me? Not somebody else, not my job, not my bills, not my car, which, okay, yeah, all this stuff is important. It's our shelter. But what do I need to do for me? Because if I don't do this for me, no one's going to do this for me. It's a temporary solution, sometimes food. So understanding the different cues and tapping back into intuitive eating and our original relationship with food can help improve our relationship in the long term. Understanding that these like quick impulses are a temporary solution to a chronic problem for some of us, right? As someone who might get anxious and grab chocolate, right? Like I have to understand like why am I getting anxious and work on the anxiety too in that. So it's understanding yourself. Common emotions and feelings. Food can be procrastination, right? I don't feel like doing this homework assignment. I don't feel like listening to this webinar. I need something else to help make it a little bit better. Um, all the emotions below, but it's about acknowledging the feeling and then replacing that feeling or eating behavior with something else that can equally satisfy. So I always like to use Thanksgiving because I used to have a lot of patients that are like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Thanksgiving, the food, the food, the food, which, yeah, the food is exciting and wonderful and something to be grateful for and excited about. But also, what are 2 to 3 other things you're looking forward to about Thanksgiving or that holiday, that barbecue, that event? Or maybe I'm just using anxiety as an example. Maybe I'm feeling anxious and I'm grabbing that chocolate. Instead, could I maybe go into another room, right? Change the space, change the environment, do some breath work, do some journaling, call a friend, play with an animal, something that's going to equally satisfy you like the food, if not better, right? Because there's so many amazing things to this life to do and incorporate into our lives. Playing music, right? Things that make you happy. That's what it's about. It's your life to live. You deserve to be happy. Grounding ourselves in the present, right? Like I'm not in the future, I'm not in the past, I'm in the now, right? What's going on with me now? Grounding. Self-care, and the definition of self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health, right? I got to do this for me. No one is going to do this for me. That is the number one thing that, it's an important reality, right? So if I'm not listening to my body's cues and honoring my body, no one else is going to do that. Just because they don't know, they're not feeling what you feel. Exactly. Quiet the mental chatter around food, right? So a lot of times the word food noise is being used, emotional eating, food noise, binge eating, etc. They all kind of fall under the heading of using food as some kind of an emotion sometimes or filler. So it's linked to dopamine driven reward pathways. Oh, why at work am I munching on these, things when I'm at my desk doing these spreadsheets? Because do you really want to be doing the spreadsheets? No, maybe not. So can I play some music instead? Or can I make this a little better? Can I break it up and do, 5 minutes here, or 10 minutes here, set a timer, get up, go get my water, refill it, go back to it. How do I make this a more pleasurable experience for me? Cognitive rigidity can be a really big trigger. Like I label these foods as good or bad. So it can increase that stress around a food of, oh, I really want, let me use the example, pizza, bagels, a pie, cake, right? Like I cannot have this food, right? That rigidity. This is a quote unquote, I'm saying quote because it's not actually, oh, bad food, right? So if I eat this food, oh no, um, I can't be having this. I'm so stressed. It's going to blow it up, blow my body up. Maybe my grandmother told me once, a minute on the lips is a century on the hips. I'm so anxious about this food. Okay, well, now I'm going to say goodbye to it. It's the last time I'm ever having this. I'm going to be back on my diet the next meal, the next day. So I'm going to binge this pie, right? Sometimes it's not exactly going that way in our mind, but it is like a subconscious concept, right? So it's that rigidity that can lead to that. Studies show self-compassion practices can lower that intensity of that food preoccupation, right? It's just a slice of pie. It's not the end of the world. You have it, maybe you put it in as like a snack in your day, as an after dinner treat or an after lunch treat. It is what it is. It's a slice of pie. Have it, enjoy it, eat it slow, savor it. You're not a bad person. Move on at the end of the day, right? Reframe it. I notice this craving versus I'm having this craving. I can't eat this. That's a bad food. Avoid it. No, I'm noticing a craving. I'm aware of it. Just pausing and acknowledging first and grounding yourself just in that moment, right? Versus the impulsivity of I'm noticing this craving. I'm grabbing it, right? Moving slowly throughout our day. So stress activates that HPA axis, right? So you have your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. So when you're in that more fight or flight state, right? I'm running from that saber-toothed tiger. There's more of a cortisol surge. Sorry, guys, my brain moves faster than my mouth sometimes. So that cortisol surge can cause that craving, like we were talking about. You release epinephrine. Epinephrine releases sugar into your bloodstream. So there is that increase. And sometimes insulin's released, and therefore there's a little bit more craving. So it is a little bit physiological, but it's driven by that psychological aspect. Environment filled cues we'll get to, like we said, advertisements, smells, social pressures, or like we've had that friend that's like, I hate the word when like my friends use this at the table and they're like, I'm feeling so fat. I'm going to order this food. I can't eat this food, right? And then it makes you sit at the table and go and have sometimes those feelings or sensations. And then maybe we have guilt around food or they're having that splurge. So I should have that splurge versus being the positive vector for change in that setting and being like, hey, so and so, you're beautiful. Stop talking to yourself like that. Let's get the food that we really want, enjoy it, and move on with our day. It's not the end of the world. So sometimes it's the social pressures of, every time I'm with so and so, they bring donuts around, right? So maybe it's we can't control other people, but we can control our reactions to what those people bring around us. I know sometimes where I used to work, there was this, we called it the vanishing break room. People would bring the stuff in that, and many of us have this probably, people would bring the stuff in from home that they don't want to have around themselves, so then they put it in the break room. And then meanwhile, like you walk into the break room and now you're tempted because it's in sight and mind. So if you know every time you go into the break room, there's going to be something tempting you, try to go in with a friend. Hey, can you come in with me? I just want to grab my lunch box. Then you might be less likely to grab that certain thing, or maybe you keep your food in a different place. It depends on your needs, but you shouldn't. I wouldn't want that for somebody, that they would feel that lack of control around the food, that they'd have to put the food in a separate place. That could maybe be like a short-term solution while we work on the relationship with food. But it's just being aware. Emotional eating often soothes via a temporary serotonin spike, but doesn't address the root need. Comfort, rest, connection, right? Like, let's talk about the pandemic. How many people were probably emotional eating during the pandemic, looking for that connection from food, right? How many people, we saw the stats, maybe on how many people started turning towards alcohol, right? It's trying to just understand, like, what am I looking for? And how can I be direct with myself on what my needs are and addressing the true root of my need. And that's mental health, though. Nutrition points it out, mental health solves it. So it's just being aware. Next is tools to rewire these reactive patterns, right? Surviving in this New York lifestyle. So somatic nervous system regulation, right? Breath work can really help to slow down your heart rate. I used to get frustrated when someone says, okay, just breathe. But really, that's one of the best pieces of advice we can give ourselves or give our loved ones is, hey, you're feeling a little stressed, you're feeling a little angry or bored or whatnot. Just breathe for a minute, figure out what you need to do, come up with, your next, strategy. There's different breath work patterns. So if I'm um, inhaling longer than I'm exhaling, I'm more likely to speed up my heart rate. So it's good to be aware of that. So the 4-7-8 pattern can be really helpful. You inhale for 4, you hold for 7, and you exhale for 8. That can help to really slow things down. Call that your reset button. Yoga is amazing. It's an amazing mind body mindfulness practice. Often, yoga classes incorporate box breathing into it, where you inhale for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, and you hold for 4 again. That can also help to slow things down a little bit. Of course, there's plenty of other patterns. Wim Hof breathing can help with getting deeper meditation in. This is definitely a new helpful trend, right? That's starting to, come up maybe on your social media feeds, or you might start to see more about breath work or somatic nervous system regulation work. Of course, like we went into a little bit on grounding, it helps to bring attention back to the body, walking outside, being outside with nature. Go outside barefoot and touch grass, guys. We're meant to be outside. And of course, many of us all know that. Nutrition for stability, right? We touched a lot on blood sugar stability earlier. So protein, fiber, healthy fat at meals. Snacks, try to put protein and/or healthy fat with a carbohydrate. If you get a little, stuck on what is a protein, how much do I need, what is a carb, how much do I need, fat, etc. That's where working one-on-one could be a really good tool to let a registered dietitian in on the picture, big picture, to be your teammate, to know, what your day-to-day struggles are, what your day-to-day routines like, and for them to help you. Most importantly is just to be open and honest, right? I know this might be a little curt. If you know me, I'm a very blunt person in a loving way, though. It's like a gynecologist. I've seen it all, meaning we've seen all the diets, we've seen all the things that people do. It doesn't phase me when someone tells me I'm drinking a liter of Diet Pepsi a day, or it doesn't phase me when someone tells me I binged a pie. Be honest, and you will get so much out of it. Next is habit rewiring, neuroplasticity, right? Pairing new cues with mindful choices, right? So your brain forms new neural pathways, right? So at first, it can be really, really tough. So I'm going to use an example of I played lacrosse up in Oneonta in the freezing cold in January, and I was lacrosse goalie. It was not fun being pelted with lacrosse balls at the end of January in 0-degree weather. So I had to tell myself, you want to be here, right? Like you're either going to be here for 2 hours a day and be miserable, or you're going to be here for 2 hours a day and be happy. So sometimes like you'll have a negative thought come into your brain and you try to counter it with something positive and saying, "Oh, I'm outside with my friends. I'm moving my body. I'm getting exercise. I love, physical reactivity." It's the same kind of with eating in regard to, "Oh, I'm feeling really upset. So and so said this negative thing to me. I'm grabbing the chocolate," right? Or it can be, "Oh, wow. I really, I'm feeling upset. So and so said this negative thing to me. Let me go step away. Let me go breathe. Let me go call a friend. Let me go play with my dog. Go play with my cat. Let me go stretch," right? Each time when you're rerouting to that new thing, you're building stronger connections in your brain that I know some of us come in and they say, "I just want to be that person. I just want to be that person that naturally just does that." Things take time, and that's okay. And it's a muscle. And every time you're rerouting, and you're actively working on it, you're making that muscle stronger. But you got to be loving with yourself too. That relationship, that change doesn't happen overnight, but the best things in life take time. So a great example is pause, take 3 deep breaths, and then act on it and decide with awareness what your next action is going to be. Sometimes it's pause, take 3 breaths. When was the last time I ate? Oh, well, it's been 3 hours, 4 hours since I've eaten. I'm really hungry. I need food. Um, I know I need to cook something. I'm going to be really, what will my future self say to my present self? I know I'm going to feel much better if I eat a more nourishing food. And I can give myself a little treat on the end of it versus, let me just grab this item, eat it really quickly and move on. Maybe it wasn't the best choice. Maybe I don't feel as good. Or I bought all these fruits and vegetables and marinated this meat and now I didn't even eat it and I had this instead. So just, grounding ourselves one thing at a time, moving slowly. There's no such thing as multitasking. So self-care examples, sometimes it can sound like a little juvenile. Like many of us know, okay, I know I should be walking the dog, or I know I should be doing X, Y, and Z instead, but I just don't do it. So to help break down that impulsivity that can be in all of us, right? Put like a list on the fridge or put like a list on the inside of the snack cabinet of maybe one is the meals that you laid out for yourself for the week if you did some meal planning or some snacks. But the other aspect of why I bring this up is maybe a self-care list of, wait, how many times have I opened this fridge, stared at it, realized it's all the same things that are in there, and I'm just trying to pick at different things? That's not what I need. The list on the fridge can be that stimulus to say, okay, go do a face mask or go for an after dinner walk, just as like a loving reminder to oneself of the rerouters that you want to try to promise to yourself that you'll do instead. I notice I said a promise to ourselves. It's an activity, like I said earlier, that compensates for the emotion or feeling that that food is starting to provide for, that we're just replacing it. And it's wonderful when it's tied sometimes with a support plan, maybe with a loved one that you feel comfortable sharing your goals with. So it could be, hey, I notice I have this, impulsivity in the evening to go grab that snack, but I'm not hungry for it. Like I know I don't need it. Would you want to come with me for a walk, maybe around 7 or 7:30 after dinner each night? Or maybe it's, scheduling a call with a friend or throwing the ball for the dog while you sip a nice relaxing cup of chamomile tea. But if you know yourself that that trigger is there, plant little things for yourself to help yourself along. Like we said, we got to help ourselves in this world. Next is setting up our home, right? So we can look at the environment in the home. We want to create movement-friendly spaces, build, stress-free zones, try to design a nourishing kitchen, and cultivate a social home. Small shifts at times. Well, small shifts over time, if depending on your current situation. So these are just some example images. I know they call it like the man cave or like the she shed. It's an example of like a space to go to just cool off and be you and have your space. We all need boundaries. So don't feel, sometimes some people are more introverted than others. It's just, being aware of your needs, and that's okay. Um, so by creating a movements friendly space, like this is my little like she shed, if you want to call it that. So I like to just go in my little home gym if the images are showing up. Maybe, it creates a space that I see it and I walk past it in the morning when I'm taking the dogs out and say, oh, I really need to work out. I really should work out. I have the time right now. So it also serves as like a reminder, but it can also just be a rerouting space, right? Um, these are just examples of ways to create that space for you. If in the home it's not really practical, that's okay. That's all right. Maybe considering local parks, right? We live on for many of us, we're from Long Island. We live in a vacation land right now. And even in the winter, it's still gorgeous too. Then maybe it's if it's cold, you're still driving down to the beach and relaxing and reading a book in your car if you need to like get some space and get away and reroute. Or, it's warmer out. Maybe you want to go for a walk or a bike ride, or go explore even local history trails too, right? Or historical pieces on Long Island. So it doesn't always have to be at home. It's just finding your spots or your happy place. Why gardening or boosting health? So I took this slide from one of my Blue Zones presentations, full transparency. So ignore the Godfather aspects of this, but also don't. So what I mean by that is gardening, right? So gardening can be a very grounding, peaceful thing for you, right? So you could be connecting with the earth, connecting with the magnetic field of the earth, touching plants, touching grass. You're caring, more importantly, you're caring for something else, which can also be a very rewarding, exciting thing. It can be a great rerouter. It's something you put your time and energy into, and you watch it grow into a beautiful thing. Part with the Godfather images, as you could tell, I'm very Italian to an extent, actually, and also other things. But what I mean by that is with the Godfather, it's that he was in the back orange groves with his grandson. What a beautiful thing in the home he worked for to build, and he's passing down the tradition of, gardening. So just explaining that it can be a really good thing, just getting outside, being with your loved ones, passing down traditions, knowledge, information. I know it's always, my dad knows a lot about gardening, so it's very valuable time for me when he can teach me those things. And I find that to be very relaxing and soothing, and it's tied with good family memories. So it's a great coping aspect to go outside and just check the herbs, water the grass, etc. versus, being cooped up in the house and picking at what tasty goods are there. Um, the act of tending to a plant requires care, patience, and presence, right? It's very grounding. So it can help us with soothing those emotions. Being outside is linked with lower inflammation. It's also relaxing. There's different phytocyanides that the trees actually release. So, of course, being outside, there's green space and blue space and green noise and all of those wonderful aspects that help to de-stress us. But what's really interesting is there's actually a chemical aspect to it too. So as foods have phytonutrients or phytochemicals in it that we ingest, they are like vitamins, but they are not vitamins. So like resveratrol, for example, or anthocyanin in berries, when we ingest that, there's benefits to our brain and body because we ingested that plant. There's the same concept with phytocyanides. So trees like conifers, for example, release phytocyanides into the air that actually help to improve our natural T killer cells, and also helps to relax as well. So more of a reason. Getting outside too, especially checking your plants in the morning as one of the first things you do, can be really great as you're getting natural sunlight in your eyes, depending on what time you wake up, right? This is what gets some of us stuck, which can also increase serotonin, and therefore melatonin production later in the evening. So it can actually help you later in the day. The concept of serotonin too, your gut health is plays a role in your emotions. About 90% of your serotonin is made in the gut, and the microbes in your gut also help to communicate with your brain regarding hunger, fullness, cravings. A lot of that we went into during part two of the GLP-1 presentations that we did. November is National Diabetes Month, so I will be going back into that and doing those presentations again. But just to highlight that your gut health does play a role, as those microbes in your intestines help to make different hormones as well. So part physiological, part psychological. So building a stress-free zone, like we're talking about before, could be your garden outside, could be with your dog. Dedicate a space for relaxation, meditation, journaling. Could be for your bed, right? Food is not meant for the bed, but meditation, journaling, reading, you can start associating with the bed maybe. Dimming the lights in the evening can help support natural sleep rhythms, can also help to calm us at night. Keeping electronics out of the bedroom so you're not getting that stressful text maybe at someone on a Sunday night after 8 o'clock. Um, Setting your do not disturb. So just knowing what kind of can be a trigger for you and your stress, and then protecting yourself in terms of, protecting your peace, right? Setting boundaries. Make your home a space that you want to be in, set up the kitchen to be something that is more conducive of your goals and your needs. Knowing your parks, your local spots. So design a nourishing kitchen. We don't need to have the biggest, fanciest kitchen in the world, but make it a cute space that you want to be in. So with that being said, it's good to consider having like a fruit bowl out, right? If I have a fruit bowl out, I'm more likely to grab fruit. If I have the vegetables cut and in sight in the front portion of my fridge or the crisper, I'm more likely to grab that. If I have the baked goods that I made, up in a Tupperware in the cabinet or in the fridge in the back, I'm less likely to grab that unless it's intentional. So of course, like supporting yourself by supporting the environment around you. The power of the family meal table too can be stressful or not stressful depending on you, but or your needs or your environment, depends on your situation. But the family meal table has been linked to stronger social bonds, promoting slower, more mindful eating, talking about our day, passing down traditions, seeing someone who's eating something that you might not normally eat. So, for example, I was on a trip with a few friends this weekend, and a friend of mine doesn't really eat fish. So I said, okay, I'm going to order the fish. So if you want, why don't you try a bite of the fish and just try to keep exposing yourself to it? Because she's like, I want to like fish. I'm afraid to order it when I'm out and I don't really cook it. So I'm like, all right, so just, when someone that you're close with orders fish, try it more. And the more you're around it, the more you're trying it, the more you're gonna, feel comfortable with it, right? It takes kids about 7 introductions to a food to fully accept it. It could just, and an introduction could just be someone eating it around them. It didn't necessarily have to touch the lips. It's kind of similar for adults. So if I see my mom eating the bronzino, I'm more likely to want to try that bronzino. Encourages healthier food choices. Sometimes there is a little bit of that social peer pressure, right? I know if, say, my fiance is home, I'm more likely to eat, a fuller meal. We're going to want to cook something together that if he's not home, I might want to like piece together something small and call it a day. Just knowing what you're more prone for. Set positive habits for younger generations, right? At the family meal table. I want to make not the right choice. There's no right or wrong, but I want to make the better choice because I know so and so is watching and learning, and we want to encourage them to, nourish their bodies too. And of course, there's a lot of just talking, laughing, joy potentially for many of us. And of course, it could be our family, it could be our chosen family or our biological family, right? Your challenge is to create a dedicated meal space for yourself if you don't already, to sit down and enjoy a meal, right? Like this New York minute we live in of eating on the go, standing and eating, eating in the car, eating in the bedroom, right? Like there should be designated spaces to eat, as there's designated places and spaces to shower, as there's designated spaces to sleep, right? We don't want to, mix that up sometimes. Sorry, my dog's about to bark. Riley, we're good. Riley, enough. Okay, we're good. All right, sorry guys. I've got a Rottie and a German Shepherd right now, and a dog just walked past the house, and we don't want that right now. So we're good. They were good. So we want to turn off devices before bed, right? Or when we're eating, we want to maybe consider lighting a candle, adding flowers, make it a place that is relaxing for you. We'll talk more about the meal environment in just a moment. Of course, make it conducive for you too, right? Like organize the fridge. These are some good examples. Keep it that you have the things that you truly want to eat to nourish your body in sight and in mind. Easy snacks that can help with energy throughout the day. Pack them, have them on hand so that if you accidentally have that meeting that pushes you to eat, a little longer, that at least you have a snack to hold you off, that you're not walking in the door at a one on that hunger fullness scale. You have that small snack, maybe around 3 o'clock that, oh, I'm really at like a three right now. I'm good. If I didn't have that snack, I'd be walking in the door super, super hungry. These are very simplistic snacks. Trust me, there's plenty more snacks out there, but these are just some good, easy ones to keep on hand. My computer's freezing a little bit. There we go. Understanding that meal prep could be a whole presentation in itself, but also meal prep doesn't have to be as complicated as, Instagram sometimes makes it look. Meaning meal prep is just planning, some small steps in advance for what you're going to eat. It could be the next, planning a snack, to having an idea for a meal, to having your entire week planned out. I'm not recommending that. I'm not saying that's a must do, but it's just understanding where you fall on that meal prep spectrum and being, kind with oneself. So if you're really at that purple guy over there, it says grabbing a snack or a meal for later in advance. Okay, maybe the next step is to have a rough mental plan of what you're going to eat for the next day, right? Like before I go to bed at night, knowing what I'm going to grab for breakfast. Riley, Riley, sorry. Um, I don't have my family here to meet me right now. So, Riley, enough. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. So, it could be that maybe don't normally have a plan for breakfast the next morning. I am going to put that away. Hold on one second. Riley, come here. Come here. Good girl. Good girl. Thank you. Stay with me. Okay, sorry guys. So it could be that maybe you make it a goal that before your head hits the pillow and before you shut down the kitchen, you're planning that breakfast for the next day and having it in the Tupperware, or just if it's a yogurt, you have it in the front of your fridge with the fruit in a container, so you could just grab it for the next day versus, trying to grab it in the morning, maybe in a rush. Volumetrics, right? The art of eating more, not less, can be helpful. So volumetrics is a science-backed strategy that we were touching upon earlier that focuses on eating larger portions of lower calorie, high nutrient foods like fruits or vegetables are a prime example, to feel full and satisfied without overeating calories, right? So we've all seen maybe the side-by-side pictures of the meal that says it's 600 calories and it's something super small like a burger and a small fry and a soda, versus the 600-calorie more volume rich food loaded with fruits and vegetables and lean proteins. Oh, hi, Zena. They're saying sorry now to me. um, and lean vegetables and oh, my baby girl. Um, we want to focus on higher water content foods, right? Salads, soups are great examples too. Beans and legumes can also fall in this category. We want to incorporate foods that are low energy density and fewer calories per bite. So you're chomping and chewing longer, and it's giving that vagal nerve time to get to the brain, say, hey, I'm full. You want to eat large, balanced meals that fill your plate, and your stomach. The best choices for very low calorie density foods. Again, calories are not neither good nor bad. It just depends on what your needs are. Maybe I want to have a lot of avocado in this meal, and even though avocado is so great for me, it's just dense in calories. And same with nuts and seeds. So maybe I want to have some fruits and vegetables to help balance that out. So non-starchy veggies are that could be good examples: cucumbers, spinach, bell peppers, zucchinis, mushrooms, asparagus. Fruits, berries are wonderful. Kiwis, apples, pears. 7 grams of fiber in a pear. Who would have thought? Oranges, clementines, different melons, broth-based soups. So it is a bit of a trend of people drinking bone broth, because it's about 10 grams of protein per cup. And some individuals put like the Rise hot chocolate mix into it as like a kind of a sweet spot. To each his own. I like hot water. It's not a problem, but the bone broth does boost up the protein too. So if you like the flavor, it can be something. Miso broth. So think of different cultures that when you go out to eat, you get the ginger dressing salad first, you get a miso soup first, because it's spacing out the meal and also giving you some water-based foods to feel full off of. Um, of course, it's not like my family that does like the antipasto, the pasta, the salad, like just being aware of the courses too and what volumes are sometimes, with different traditions. Good volume and satiety, right? Lean proteins are going to be a little bit more calorie dense, but like chicken, fish, white fish, tofu, egg whites, those are going to be leaner. But of course, if you have like the dark meat chicken breast, the steak, the egg yolks, they're not bad. They just have a little bit more calories. So it's just worth to be aware from a volume standpoint. Beans and legumes can be really helpful, increasing volume. Popcorn is actually a whole grain. Check out the fiber on some of your healthier popcorn brands. You might be very excited. So that makes it a volume food. Sometimes for some, it's about 3 cups is a portion size. Edamame, depending on how soy feels in your body, the dry roasted or the steam fresh edamame can also be a great volume snack. Rice cakes are a good tool. There's crunch to it. It's very lean. You put a little peanut butter on there with some banana and some cinnamon. And it's a wonderful snack. Some tips are to bulk meals with veggies. Choose water-based sides. You could do cauliflower rice or zoodles too, depending on the meal. These are some other examples. Again, everyone will get the slides. What if I never feel hungry, right? We're going to go through some scenarios. Sometimes I've worked with some amazing individuals that are shift workers, right? And because they go from maybe working a week of nights and then the next week they work on a week of days. So their meals are all, over the place, that their circadian rhythm, they're not really getting a lot of those hunger cues. So for those individuals, it's setting, meal alarms or alerts or planning times to eat. For some of us, if it means trying to create more of a schedule or a routine around eating, right? I have many people tell me, I'm not hungry for breakfast, right? Well, is your body just not used to you having food for breakfast? Are we maybe eating later at night and we're feeling full and not really getting that time to digest, and when we're waking up in the morning we're not that hungry because of that. So you want to try to create a routine around the timing that's best for your schedule, and when you're consistent with that, your body will start to give you hunger cues, and it's finding what those hunger cues are for you, right? Usually that stomach contraction, that lightheadedness, that excitement for food. Think about hunger disruptors though too, like breakfast, right? For some individuals, maybe they're having coffee right away, or they have to take certain medications that curb their appetite, or maybe they smoke, like nicotine does curb appetite. stress or emotions in certain portions of the day, right? Or our environment. So just being aware of disruptors, but also trying to keep routine. Uh, these are just some scenarios. If I don't eat much all day because I'm busy, but then once I start eating, I cannot stop. Another scenario, we'll get into the answers in subsequent slides. Scenario two, I don't really snack, but I can eat large portions with no problem. I just love food. Number three is I feel like I'm always hungry. I am home all day and I find myself going back and forth to the kitchen multiple times per day, grazing or picking at foods and snacks. This was really common during the pandemic when a lot of us were working from home. So for those of us who say, I don't eat much all day, but the specific of, I should have put those in each slide. I don't eat much all day because I am busy, but once I start eating at night, I can't stop, right? Maybe lacking of hunger or appetite is common for them during the day. Maybe they're not giving themselves time to eat during the day, right? Or maybe they're a shift worker, maybe they're working very busy schedules. They're not taking time for themselves to feel what their body's needs are. Our minds are occupied during the day. We're stressed, right? The day, um, During the day, we're not tuning into our own needs. Maybe we're booked back to back to back in meetings, and we're not really tuning into our body's desire or need for energy. So the individual is saying, like, at the end of the day, I can finally really like eat something. It's the time that they finally get to relax and have their brain and body for themselves, right? That they really get to check in with themselves, like, what do I need, right? So you want to set a realistic amount of calories to try to eat during the day, right? That trying to encourage yourself. I should really try to eat a little bit more earlier in the day. Maybe I start with just having a small snack at lunch if I'm not used to having lunch, for example, or if I'm not used to having breakfast. Maybe it's a small piece of fruit and like a nut or a seed butter or a protein shake. Something is always better than nothing. Set a reminder on your phone to stop and take a lunch break, right? Set boundaries for yourself. Eat slow when you do finally get to eat, right? Turning the TV off. We'll get to that a little bit more. Try to sit down at the table, make it conducive for you. Keep easy and quick snacks on hand. So if you can't eat much during the day, but you can get little snacks in during the day, all right, that can at least make a difference that you're not going to be so hungry by the evening. And then you're taking in the bulk of your calories when you're less active too, and right before you go to bed. No wonder why we're not hungry come breakfast, for example. Portion control problems. So it can be similar to scenario one. So scenario two is I don't really snack, but I can eat large portions with no problem. I just really love food. All right, I get you. I get you. So eating speed, right? So portion control starts and ends with mindfulness, right? So it's eating speed. Faster eating can lead to larger portions, right? It's that vagal nerve we talked about. Check in with hunger fullness, ideally arrive hungry but not starving. So for example, if like when you go out to eat or you're at different family parties or just, when you have dinner at night with your family or with yourself, it's trying to have like maybe a small snack at lunchtime so that you are not walking into that meal at like a 0 or 1 on that hunger fullness scale. Give yourself a portion first, right? So sometimes I'll tell individuals like take the food and try not to over portion the plate of what your expectation is. Give yourself what your needs are, and then tell yourself if I'm truly hungry after I pause for a few minutes, give that impulse time to get up to the brain to say that I'm full. And if I'm still hungry after that, I have permission to eat. There's nothing wrong with eating that, but it's just knowing our tendencies. Um, I know for myself, like a family parties, say like on holidays, like if there's like the dessert on the table and I have like a certain thing in front of me, I'm more likely just to want to grab it and cut like that extra piece. Or say you have like the table set and you made extra of say spaghetti and meatballs and you have that on the table in front of you and you're just kind of sitting there waiting for everybody to finish up, or maybe you just are think didn't give yourself the time to let your that impulse get up to the brain to say you're full.
you might be more easily prone to like grab that extra serving and put it on the plate. Sometimes having it on the counter, the island, etc., that you have to get up and plate yourself makes you have a little bit more time to think, do I really need this? Sometimes I like to tell individuals that, cook that in bulk, which is wonderful. Portion it into a Tupperware so that you're thinking to yourself, well, if I grab that extra serving that I don't really need, I'm not really hungry for, I'm taking from lunch the next day that I just spent time, energy, and money prepping for myself, right? So, seeing the big picture can sometimes help there, right? Give yourself a portion and put the rest away in the cabinet, right? It could just be, put it away, get it out of sight, out of mind. Give yourself permission to eat more if you need and you're hungry at a later time. So pause, talk with your loved ones at the table, and then after a few minutes, if you need, go back for more. Remember that overeating is no less wasteful than trashing the food, given your body doesn't actually need the calories. So what I mean by that is I had a lot of individuals I've counseled in the past that may have grown up with food insecurity or just having a lacking of food maybe when they're younger and they have a hard time throwing out food. Maybe like for example, they bought the Costco sheet cake for a birthday party that only had 4 to 6 people at it, right? Do I really like need to take one for the team and finish the cake? Like, am I really doing something good for everybody by doing that? Could I freeze it? Could I repurpose it? Could I donate it? Yeah, like I am a fan of not wasting food. But at the end of the day, if it's like you or the trash can, you have to respect yourself more. Choose volume eating friendly foods too when you're in those situations. That could also help. Scenario number three, I feel like I'm always hungry. I'm home all day, and I find myself going back and forth to the kitchen multiple times per day, grazing or picking at foods and snacks. So, eating throughout the day can be a helpful way to maintain, right, your hunger fullness cues, prevent yourself from getting to like a one that starving feeling. But if we're consuming way more, I hate to say calories, but it's true. To an extent, this is calories in, calories out. There's other factors, but calories in, calories out, we cannot completely disregard. Your needs do fluctuate different days because you do different activities different days, but I don't want to be, completely anti-calorie, right? So if you're still consuming too many calories than what you're burning, it's not really going to help us, right? So we want to look at routine, routine, routine. So schedule meal time, schedule snacks, note that, okay, I typically eat these different like 3 to 4 breakfasts. I can change the flavors of these breakfasts or the seasonality of these breakfasts, but for the most part, I know how much I eat. When I eat oats, I typically have about a half a cup of oats, right? So you're starting to build more like structure in, for example. Nutrient dense options, like we said, that make us feel fuller longer. Assess how you're feeling in the moment, right? Like, am I hungry? Am I craving? Am I just working from home in Excel sheets right now and I'm looking for a little dopamine hit? Maybe I want to light a candle, play some music as I go through this spreadsheet. You got to ask why, right? Why am I going back and forth? Did I not finish breakfast and I'm just really hungry? There's the migrating motility complex. So after COVID, we saw a lot more SIBO, small intestinal bowel overgrowth. So, because a lot of individuals were just kind of like grazing throughout the day, it is important to give yourself some gaps throughout the day where, you're allowing your stomach to work and then become empty and then to tell yourself that you're hungry, right? We don't want to always be spiking our sugars and we don't want to always be asking our digestive tract to work. There needs to be some gaps in there. Um, so in that, right, it's important to try to give that rest. What we eat throughout the day can impact our fullness, our energy, our blood sugar levels. I don't want to say weight, but yeah, weight, but body composition, right? We may graze to true biological hunger or craving. So it's just saying, what do I need in this moment? Also, working with a registered dietitian can help you to figure out what those portions or meal structure looks like, right? When eating, I love this little graphic. So this could be like just a fun reminder. I've had some patients print it and just leave it on their table or leave it on their fridge as just like a reminder to themselves during the day, or during dinner. We do not have to eat with our left hand. If that's something you want to do, that's totally your choice, but I'm not saying you have to do that to reach your goals. The bigger thing I want you to get from this is sit down when you eat. You work too darn hard. Enjoy your food. Don't eat and watch TV or be on your phone or sending emails or in the middle of a work meeting or handling a call. Give yourself that boundary for you, right? Make your meal enjoyable. Try to eat in a lower stress situation. If it means not eating, though, something is always better than nothing. But it's ideal to avoid having, screens in front of you. Playing music, okay. Maybe, a podcast from time to time, sure. But nothing beats real connection and talking with someone that, you love and that loves you back, right? Close your eyes, savor the flavor. So we'll get into what I mean by the, the senses around food. Enjoy your taste, focus on chewing your food down, trying to not eat out of straight out of the packaging if we're prone for that, right? Take it out of the packaging, portion onto a plate, eat it with the silverware that is, tied with that food. Sip in between bites slowly, small sips can also be tools to help slow us down. So have that hunger fullness scale maybe on the table or on the fridge can be a tool that in the middle of that meal you don't have to tell anybody what you're doing. If you want to, go ahead. But you could even say to yourself like, "Oh, I'm feeling like a 5 right now," or "I'm feeling like a 6 right now." Or make it a fun thing with your friend, right? Let's look at the hunger fullness scale. Let's see how we're feeling, right? You never know how you impact somebody. It depends on your relationship with that person. The benefits of eating slower, right? We can eat less food and not feel deprived. That's number one. Look Oh, I don't like how I phrase that. I'm sorry. But it can help us with our body composition goals and feel better, right? Learn what hungry and fullness truly feels like. Disrupt patterns that can derail your progress. It could be a tool that you can use anytime, anywhere. No one has to know what you're doing. It's just like breathing. No one has to know what you're doing, and it can be a tool for you. Take a one breath trick is another one that we can tap into to slow down when eating. Look at the clock and say, okay, can I just add a minute onto this? Because I know I'm a fast eater and I tend to do this, eat this meal in, 5 minutes. Can I try to do it in like 7 minutes? Just being aware, right? The cornerstone. Put down the remote, eat foods that really need to be chewed, like we said, spread it out with different courses, do something between bites, like ask someone, how was your day? What went on? Savor your food. I'll get into that a little bit more. Notice if it affects your eating speed, right? I know on Wednesdays I come home really stressed from X, Y, and Z. Refine your practice with those around you. What lives in the dark dies in the light. Talking about things, because also you never know if someone else is dealing with the same thing, and maybe you guys want to help each other out or etc. The raisin meditation, cultivate mindfulness in every bite. So the raisin meditation we used to do as a lunch and learn at my old job, and it was fun. There's some funny little things in there, but it's really you could take a raisin if you're like me and you don't like raisins and you want to take like a mini peppermint patty. Girls, sorry, someone walked by. They're behaving though. You want to take that raisin. I spoke too soon. Or a mini peppermint patty because of the layers with that, that's okay. So you take almost like 5 minutes to take that bite. What does it smell like? Where did this food come from? What does it taste like? How does it dissolve on my tongue? It can be a tool to help when you're eating food to really slow down. And one thing to state is it's okay and completely normal to eat food for pleasure, right? Food is a great thing. Food is a blessing. It's worth appreciating what went into the meal to make that food or how lucky we are to taste such like a tasty thing, right? I think it's something, of course, that can connect us with others. It can create a sense of belonging and make celebrations worthwhile at times. All foods have a purpose and a place. And we recommend having choices and a list of foods of what you eat for energy, pleasure, health, or if you're compromising. So you're just getting in tune with yourself. But it's not I live to eat or I eat to live. It's a harmony, right? And intuitive eating, if you're someone that you find really struggles with this concept of emotional eating, there's the intuitive eating workbook you'll see on the next slide, where there's a section in there that helps you to find, do I avoid certain foods because they're high in fat? Maybe I'm trying to avoid saturated fat, but I'm noticing I have a fear of just fat in general, right? For no reason. Avocados, olive oil, they're great for me. If I have a craving for a certain food that I don't allow myself to have, right? It helps you to kind of doing this exercise can help to notice different diet culture aspects that might be creeping in. So first and foremost, what is intuitive eating? It's a self-care framework that makes you aware or the expert in your own body and self and your needs. It uses instinct, emotion, and rational thought when making choices around food. It's in a process that can help improve health, physical and mentally. It is an anti-diet approach, meaning diet as, I'm doing the Atkins diet, I'm doing the um, cabbage soup diet, right? I'm trying to just nourish my body in a way that feels best for me to get to my health goals, whatever that might be. Could be reducing visceral fat and increasing muscle to help with blood sugar sensitivity, for example. It's okay to want to make healthy changes to your body composition, but it's doing it under the guise of I'm nourishing my body or I'm making better choices versus I'm depleting myself and I'm avoiding foods and I'm afraid of foods because that rigidity is what can impact that emotional eating. It's a lifelong journey of self-discovering and healing, and we are born to be intuitive eaters. You know, babies cry when they're hungry and they stop when they'll stop when they're full, right? They often cue. So the image might be showing on your end. It's not showing as well on my end, so I'll make sure that it appears in the slides when I send it. But the image is of the intuitive eating workbook, which is available on Amazon as well. There's 10 principles of intuitive eating. If you find that the concept of emotional eating really resonates with you, we often go through this workbook and find different chapters that call to different individuals or go chapter by chapter in sessions with patients that might really benefit from it. Chapter 1 is reject the diet mentality, like we were talking about. Honor your hunger, right? If you're hungry, you should eat. Your body is telling you it needs something. Make peace with food, right? All foods fit. We are not good or bad. Our morality doesn't come from our food choices. We want to challenge the food police. Um, you know, Many of us might have had, someone when we're younger say, "Why are you eating that? A minute on the lips is a century on the hips. Don't eat that food. That food's bad," right? Feel your fullness, right? Allow yourself to be full. It's okay to be full. We just want to not be uncomfortably stuffed because life is short. We don't want to be uncomfortable. Discover the satisfaction factor, cope with your emotions without using food, respect your body, exercise, feel the difference, and then gentle nutrition. Gentle nutrition is the concept of I know I should be having about 130 grams of protein per day, but I'm just trying my best gradually to bring this up and also not overstuff myself and be uncomfortable either, just as like an example. It's moving the science and the guidelines of what we know we should be doing with the concept of listening to the cues of our body and honoring that as well. These are just some strategies for trigger foods, right? Focus on addition, right? This is a what we're going to add to our diet mindset versus what we're going to take away. Like I'm so excited to have apples this fall. I love eating the in-season Honeycrisp apples. Keep trigger foods out of sight, out of mind. Indulge after you've comforted yourself in other ways, such as cuddling with your dog, resting with a weighted blanket, using a journal, doing meditation. Uh, Eat slowly. All the tips that we've already, touched upon. This is here for you. And some of my top tips is try to really eat every 3 to 5 hours, a balanced meal for yourself. Stay conscious of your meal, that your meal and snack is balanced with protein, fiber, healthy fat. Be self-aware, mindful of what's going on, right? Am I hungry? Am I craving? How am I feeling? What does my body need? What do I need? Consider your food environment and make self-care a priority, not a reward. If you don't fill your cup, how can you give it to others? Does anyone have any questions? I know we went long, but there's a lot of good topics to touch on tonight. And most importantly, thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to upload this presentation shortly and send out the link and slides to you guys. If there's anything you want to talk offline about, please let me know. Of course, most importantly, thank you again, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.